Hello, so I'm Andy Ridgway, and I'm a senior lecturer in science communication at the University of the West of England in Bristol, in the UK. I'm part of the science communication unit here, and I'm going to tell you a bit about some research that we've done with the Leverhulme Research Centre for Forensic Science at the University of Dundee, which is in Scotland. So this project was a bit unusual. It was looking at the potential for comics to support jury members in understanding forensic science in courtrooms. So there's quite a problem at the moment in courtrooms that at the moment juries are making really big life-changing decisions on things such as sort of murder cases. And for many members of a jury, when they step into a courtroom, that's their first experience of having to engage with and understand forensic evidence. And it's a big challenge because, firstly, it's new to them. They may have no science background. And also, there are certain restrictions in a courtroom which mean that members of a jury can't ask experts in forensic science for more information or questions that sort of help to aid clarity. So it's quite a difficult situation for them to be in, particularly when there's so much pressure on them to make the right decision. So what this research does is look at, I suppose, quite an innovative way to potentially communicate forensic science using comics. So what happened was that some comics were produced by our colleagues at the University of Dundee, based on what's known as judicial primers. And these are information that scientists put together for people like judges to help them understand forensic information. These were produced in relation to two areas of forensic science. So one is gait analysis, which is really understanding essentially how people walk and the individual ways that people walk. We might be able to use that to sort of identify people. But then there's also DNA analysis, and in particular, forensic research about the ability of DNA to be transferred from one location to another. The comics were put together, and then some mock trials were run. University of Dundee enlisted the help of a charity called Fast Familiar, which put together, I suppose, digital interactive science communication activities. And they got together juries at certain events who were able to follow a fictional murder case on their iPads. And they were able to watch evidence being presented by actors who pretended to be forensic experts in the court case and discuss and debate the evidence that they were given and vote whether they thought this fictional defendant was guilty of murder. But they were also then shown the comics, and their discussions were recorded, deliberations were recorded, and then they were able to vote again on whether they thought the defendant was guilty or not. So it gave us a really interesting insight into the extent to which comics influenced people's understanding of the evidence and the extent to which it shaped people's decision making. So we did the analysis here at the University of the West of England, and it was one of our MSc students, Isabel Baxter, who did the analysis of all those discussions and the voting. And what she found was that broadly, the comics did improve the fictional jury's understanding of that forensic evidence. You know, firstly, from the conversations that they were having before they'd seen the comics, often they weren't sure whether they understood the evidence. For example, they weren't sure of the extent to which DNA can be transferred from one location to another. But after reading the comics, we found that the jury members discussed that evidence in much greater detail, and they had much more sort of confidence in their reasoning and their decision making, which demonstrates the fact that they felt they were understanding that evidence much more effectively. In terms of how the comics helped, an important element is the fact that that evidence was presented both visually and through the use of text. So the ability to be able to understand something when it's delivered through two mechanisms was a really important way that the comics helped jury members understand that forensic science and the forensic evidence. There's also the fact that the comics provide information like sequentially. So if you imagine a comic page, there are a series of boxes with text in it, and you know exactly the order in which you need to read that information. So that logical way of presenting that information about the forensic techniques also really helped the jury members. Even if in future it's not comics as we imagine them that might be used in court, I think there's a lot that can be learned from this research about how evidence is how forensic science is presented in court cases, and it may be certain characteristics of comics and how they present information that could be replicated in other forms. So it's been a fantastic project to work on, a really interesting one, and I hope this avenue of research carries on.